Hello and welcome to the Australia Today. We are here live, joined with our editor, Pallavi Jain from India, and Sarah Elgate from Westman. We are breaking the news that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has raised Hindu temple vandalism and targeting of Hindu community here in Australia by Khalistan supporters. And they have categorically told Australian Prime Minister that it is of very concerning nature to each and every person in India. They have also decided to make some sort of a joint task force. But we will know about this from our colleague Pallavi Jain, who is in India and is reporting on Prime Minister Albanese's visit in Australia. Pallavi, what can you tell us? It's kind of a big breaking news that what has happened in last 20, 30 minutes in that joint statement from Prime Minister Albanese and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Tell us what is happening right now.
Jay, yes, it's a very, very significant development. The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, they held bilateral talks in New Delhi at Hyderabad House today. And then there was a joint press statement after that. And in that statement, Prime Minister Modi categorically stated that the reports that are coming in from Australia about Hindu temples being attacked is a matter of concern and it's distressing. And he mentioned that he had brought up this issue with Prime Minister Albanese, who has assured him that the safety of the Indian Australian community is of primary importance to him. So one can say that this was an issue which was spoken about, was discussed, and for Prime Minister Modi to actually mention it in the press statement means that this is an issue that is of serious concern to India at this stage.
Pallavi, we are getting the visuals. Let me show what Prime Minister Modi has just said.
खेद का विषय है कि पिछले कुछ सप्ताहों से ऑस्ट्रेलिया में मंदिरों पर हमलों की खबरें नियमित रूप से आ रही है। स्वाभाविक है कि ऐसे समाचार भारत में सभी लोगों को चिंतित करते हैं, हमारे मन को व्यथित करते हैं। हमारी इन भावनाओं और चिंताओं को मैंने प्रधानमंत्री एल्बेनीजी के समक्ष रखा और उन्होंने मुझे आश्वस्त किया है कि भारतीय समुदाय की सेफ्टी उनके लिए विशेष प्राथमिकता है। इस विषय पर हमारी टीम्स नियमित संपर्क में रहेगी और यथासंभव सहयोग करेगी। Friends,
Pallavi, can you tell me what assurance has been given by Australian Prime Minister Albanese to Narendra Modi, and what kind of arrangement Mr. Modi was talking in this press brief?
Well, Jay, that would be a very confidential level of talks that has happened between the two sides, between the two governments. But clearly, Prime Minister Modi said that there will be teams, in both the countries who will be working together and cooperating wherever possible to address this concern. So it seems that there is going to be some sort of a mechanism between the both countries, between the security officials and the government officials to address this issue. For the Prime Minister to put this on record in a press statement means that this is a very, very significant development. Of course, there were other issues that were also spoken about, the people-to-people connect, the Ekta agreement, the new mechanism, Australia-India education qualification recognition mechanism. All of those things were talked about. MOUs were signed in sports and in innovation. So there was a gamut of issues, but certainly it seems that this is an issue of a significance for the Indian government. And it seems that there is going to be some sort of a joint task force potentially, or some sort of an arrangement to address this issue of serious concern to the Indian Australian community in Australia.
Pallavi, let me plug in Sarah Elgate. She is director of Hindu Human Rights. She raises this question of Hindu persecution, Hindu phobia rising in Australia. Let's go to her. Sarah, how are you seeing these questions raised in front of Australian Prime Minister, and what are you hoping will come out of this?
Well, any joint task force needs to be pardon me, any joint task force needs to be across the issue. So let's not just throw in, a whole heap of people that, for instance, may not believe that Hindu phobia exists. Let's keep those academics that have been plaguing our system out of the picture, because that would just put Hindus more at risk. A safety plan has been sent out to many Hindu temples in Queensland from Hindu Human Rights with a 22-point list of things that they can do for a comprehensive security plan. And that's going to involve more than security cameras, obviously. It can be quite costly, and that needs to be instated for a good 12 months, and it should come at the cost of the Home Office and the government, because this is not a situation Hindus have caused or inflicted upon themselves. It's one that they were warned about. We all knew that the amount of hate that was arising from this community, the amount of attacks on temples overseas. So it wasn't that they didn't know that this was coming, and I think the Melbourne incident was just really the icing on the cake. If they continue to ignore these issues, they may end up having an extremist movement active in this country that will put Indians at risk, and then it's going to have a ripple effect on our Indo-Pacific relationships and agreements. So I think Albanese is in a position now of make it or break it, and if he fails at this point now, he's going to lose the confidence and the support of the Australian, Indian and Hindu community in diaspora. And I think he's got a really great opportunity to pledge support and to put the money down, because we need action on the ground, and there's a lot that needs to be done, a lot more than just the comprehensive security. We need education through the system on Indo-phobic racism and Hindu-phobic racism. We need education to the media to actually start reporting these incidents, because, as you know, there's been a total media blackout. And unfortunately, the kind of people that are going into the media are saying things like Hindu phobia is a Nazi construct, and people who talk about Hindu phobia are hate groups. So they've been trying to mock us and ridicule us for raising these issues. All this time, we've been targeted by extremists for raising these issues in this country. So every other group in Australia can experience racism and religious vilification except Hindus, which is ridiculous. I know that Albanese doesn't think like that. I know that directly, and I'm sure that he is across our work, but this is a milestone and it's an opportunity. So I think he needs to put his money where his mouth is and get action on the ground in a big way, because a lot more needs to be done, raising community safety awareness, raising issues of what is and isn't considered racist and offensive, and vilification. And how far are we prepared to be tolerant? I think this has just gone way too far, and I can't cope. I don't think there's any Hindus in Australia that can cope at this point. So enough is enough. It's damaging our social cohesion.
Sure. It's damaging the social cohesion. That's what Sarah Gates is saying, Pallavi. Tell me, you have been reporting on this issue for almost 6 months now. Tell me the timeline, how this whole issue has spiraled into what seems to be an issue between two countries who are supposedly friends. So Prime Minister of India has to raise this issue in front of a bilateral meeting in a press conference. That means it means a lot to them. So why has Australia let it grow the way it has grown? Give me some sense, Pallavi.
Jay, as you know that
I think we can't hear you, Pallavi. I'll come back to you.
Covering this.
See, Sarah, let's talk to Sarah. Sarah,
as you
go back 4 to 5
Jay, can you hear me?
It's come back.
Jay, am I still online?
Yeah,
Yep.
you are online.
Okay.
Now we can
Yeah.
hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, so as you would remember, Jay, that we first broke the story about the Griffith Sig Games, what happened there, and then there was a rally in Melbourne, and then you and Amit have been constantly covering the vandalism on Hindu temples one by one, and then of course what happened at Melbourne was so shocking that while I was in India, I was absolutely distressed because something like that was completely unexpected, and we have been reporting on the Khalistani threat again and again that this is not something to be taken lightly. This is not a intra Indian community issue. Khalistan terrorism, as we know that before 9/11, the worst aviation terror incident was done by Khalistani terrorists when they blew up a Air India plane in which more than 300 people were killed, many of them Canadian citizens. So this is not an issue to be taken lightly. We have been covering this again and again. There have been, there have been several attacks on Hindu temples just in the last 2 months. And then just, I think yesterday or day before, there was another threat that was issued to the priest at Swaminarayan Temple at Perth, if I'm not mistaken. Before that, there was an attack in Brisbane, and there have been several attacks in temples in Melbourne. And then what happened at the Federation Square, we all know that. So it is a bit surprising why the Australian authorities the perception is that although the probe is active, no arrests have been made so far. So there is a sense of dismay. But I have to tell you here, Jay, that Foreign Minister Penny Wong recently spoke to Indian media here, to a local media channel, and she made it absolutely clear that Australia respects the sovereignty of India, and that while this Khalistan issue may have come up as protests in Australia, it has got no legal status. A similar statement was also made by the Australian High Commissioner to India, Barry O'Farrell, that Australia respects India's sovereignty and this so-called referendum has no legal status. And it was mentioned that the police is actively probing this, and all these incidents, even Minister Wong said that criminal activities will be responded to the way they are responded to in Australia. So it seems that there is some development. It seems that there is some emphasis now on getting this sorted, on addressing this issue. But I have to say that unless and until people are arrested, unless and until there is some assurance from the Australian government that that Indian Australians and the Hindu Australian community will be kept safe, I think we'll have to just wait and watch what happens next.
I'll just show you guys some pictures. Have a look. These are the temples which have been vandalized by Khalistani goons. They have been defaced by Khalistani goons. Just imagine the kind of pain these temple communities have gone through in last a few weeks, say 4 or 5 weeks. I can't even explain into words what it means, Pallavi. I'll also put you guys through to listen to this one more time to what Prime Minister Modi has said.
खेद का विषय है कि पिछले कुछ सप्ताहों से ऑस्ट्रेलिया में मंदिरों पर हमलों की खबरें नियमित रूप से आ रही है। स्वाभाविक है कि ऐसे समाचार भारत में सभी लोगों को चिंतित करते हैं, हमारे मन को व्यथित करते हैं। हमारी इन भावनाओं और चिंताओं को मैंने प्रधानमंत्री एल्बेनीजी के समक्ष रखा और उन्होंने मुझे आश्वस्त किया है कि भारतीय समुदाय की सेफ्टी उनके लिए विशेष प्राथमिकता है। इस विषय पर हमारी टीम्स नियमित संपर्क में रहेगी और यथासंभव सहयोग करेगी। फ्रेंड्स,
let me go back again to Sarah. Sarah, task force is required to coordinate between two countries, probably on info, as I understand, probably on cyber safety and security, as I understand. I have been texting and receiving texts from India. What my sources are telling, that these are the areas which probably this mutual cooperation which Prime Minister Modi is talking about will work. So what do you think? How significant is it, and how confident are you that it will be able to kind of control what we are seeing here on the streets of Australia?
Well, we've heard that if you're going to talk about cybersecurity as part of it, we've heard so many attacks that have occurred that were communal in nature. Anti-Hindu attacks have occurred as a result of social media usage. We saw that the Bangladesh pogrom began from social media usage. We've seen that Harneck Singh was almost murdered in New Zealand as a result of his YouTube statements. I've heard of people who've made comments against Khalistan, who've been doxxed, who've had their lives and their businesses ruined. You know, these are having very real impacts on the ground for people here in Australasia. And we saw that the TikTok incident of incitement that led to Harris Park brawl, this type of activity isn't covered sufficiently by the E-Safety Commissioner. And I have messaged the E-Safety Commissioner on Twitter just informally, just saying that there's nowhere to report this. It doesn't fit into the criteria. And there's not much that they can commit to doing with the existing framework when it comes to actual incitement, unless it includes, you know, death threats or, you know, other types of serious threats. But when it's this type of simmering tension that's being fed across to us through propaganda that targets us, that reiterates hate crimes on temples, the hate crime against Gandhi statue, and then there's the hate crimes of phone calls. I mean, these people are recording this stuff and then they're putting it on Twitter, and they have a bot army. And, you know, if our government is powerless to stop a bot army, how are they going to stop real world crimes? I mean, a bot army. They can't find where they come from. They can't find out why they're targeting Australian citizens with their tags. You know, and we have to watch these visuals of this happening over and over again. It's the worst thing possible. Not only have these hate crimes occurred, but we're being forced and dragged into mentions where they're reiterating every single hate crime, and we're forced to look at them over and over and over again. I mean, this is like cyber terrorism, and more needs to be done. And especially when it comes to, you know, being able to reproduce this hate on our streets. People are horrified, they're terrified, and that's exactly what Seeks for Justice intend to do. So we are being targeted by people who want to incite terror. Now, someone tell me that doesn't fit the definition of terrorism. It's just, this needs to stop, and I don't know how they're going to do it, but a working force needs to look at these elements and take them very seriously. Because, yeah.
Sorry, Sarah, I'm cutting you off, but I'll have to pin a very important point here. How about the Australian authorities? I'm talking about state political authorities and state police authorities. I see that there is a kind of a disconnect between the federal government and its agencies and the state governments. Why is that happening? I'm a migrant here living for a good 13, 14 years. I'm not grasping that interlink. Why is it happening? Has the Khalistan supporters gone into too deep with local politicians? Are they supplying them money, muscle for their elections? Is that missing piece which we are not able to see yet, or there is something more to it?
Well, the issue of trying to report revealed to me that there was a huge disconnect, and they knew that this was coming, but they didn't have a single point of contact for anyone to report anything. And so people might have to report to 16 different places for a single banner that's on the side of the road. When Gayatri Mandir reported to the police that they'd received a threat call from Sex for Justice, the police just basically shrugged it off. It wasn't until it really hit the news, from my knowledge, that something started to happen. The system just isn't informed about this stuff on the ground, and it makes it an absolute nightmare for everyday citizens that are being targeted with hate like this. Processes are long, they're convoluted, they're impossible to deal with for people of English as a second language. There is a disconnect, and when it came to the organisation of the car rally, I've been hearing, that car rally wasn't organised. The car and truck rally wasn't organised in the conventional way. And so because of that, there wasn't any recourse for us to make complaints to stop it from happening, because we'd seen what they're doing already, traffic offences, breaking the law, having things extending from their cars. Just, there was a woman who had to get her son to hospital, and she had to pull over and call an ambulance because they had put that child's safety and life in jeopardy. So, I mean, whoever made that decision, I don't know who it was, but that person really, there needs to be some kind of consequences for making decisions. Yeah, so is it happening above our heads? Is Queensland Police in control? I know the AFP is involved. So at what level are these decisions being made to sanction these acts?
We'll get into details of this, but let me go to Pallavi. Pallavi, we have just received the message that another thing, important thing, which was announced by Prime Minister Anthony Albanese was appointment of Tim Thomas as CEO of Centre for Australia-India Relationship. So how significant is it? He has worked for Bharti AXA, previously life insurance. He has worked in KPMG India Business Center. So how important is this announcement? And do you see much more happening through this center, which has not happened through other places which are working between two countries?
Jay, let's hope that that's what is going to happen, because anytime any such center comes up, it depends. It's not just one person. It depends on the composition of the body who all are involved. And let's hope that people who are appointed to important positions on this new body really understand the India-Australia relationship beyond cricket, curry, and Commonwealth. I mean, I think it's time that the relationship moves beyond that. And while the cultural aspect and the people-to-people contact and all that is very important, but I think I think time has come when Australia and India need to talk like strategic partners in the same way that they do with their other counterparts. And talk business, talk about increasing the trade between the two countries and understanding each other better. Because as I have mentioned many times before, that if you look at the Australian media, the caricature that is made of India and of Indians, the same kind of negative portrayals, the same kind of issues that keep coming up again and again, and sometimes absolutely fake narratives that are peddled. So I think it is important that people who are appointed, in this new institution, that they actually understand India and they understand the Australia-India relationship in depth. I would also like to mention about the previous issue that we were discussing, that all of us have been bullied and harassed online, and which has caused us intense distress from time to time, and we find no mechanism or no recourse at all to address the threats that are issued to us, or when we are bullied or harassed. And when the Melbourne attack happened, what was shocking was that the audacity of it, the absolute audacity of it, because you have visuals of people running after other people with sticks and hitting them. So
with swords.
Yeah, so
Swords
the
and
question
knives.
that I want to ask this question to the authorities, that how on earth Could someone take that liberty? On what basis did they think that they could do this in open? I mean, this is not some covert crime happening, gang war, in a gang war. So obviously there is some issue that we are missing here. There is something going on which is really difficult to pinpoint. But I think the authorities really have to step up their game at this stage now.
Let me put this very clearly. We did a story. It's a plug-in for our story. Please go to www.theaustraliatoday.com.au, where one of our experts, Chetan Shah, he writes that this is an advice to CEOs and people who are trying to do business with India, that don't waste your breath over humor, culture, sport, or other inane stuff. Just talk business to the point as we talk with anybody else. So this whole gimmick of taking a sports star, a cricket star for an education meet is kind of stupid. It has no meaning. It might pull some crowd, but it will not give you any business if you are trying to woo Indians or Indian universities or anything. So let's conclude this. I'll give 1 minute to each of you to give me a concluding remark. I'll start with Sarah. Sarah, give me a concluding remark. You got like 60 seconds or so.
Put the buzzer on, please, because
Yeah. Yes,
Australia has a long history of Hindu phobia, and this is not known. It's not well understood. I've traced the history of Hindu phobia in Australia. We have had all kinds of problems that you would imagine. We've had immigrants getting pushed out of areas due to their Hinduness. And this has been going on for a very long time, for centuries, at least over a century. And it's time this saffron peril business is discussed openly without prejudice, because we've already talked about the yellow peril. It's part of our school books. Now, this needs to go into our education next. The saffron peril needs to go into our school books. And really, if it doesn't happen in this generation, we're going to be facing the same problems. As our children grow, they will be targeted again and again and again in the same ways that they're being targeted now. And we don't want that with a growing Indian population. It's certainly going to have a big impact on Australia's international relations and our foreign agreements with India. And I want to see action. I want to see research, and I want to see less of this business of vilifying and characterizing Hindus, as if we're all a bunch of terrorists. It's really got to stop.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for your remark. Pallavi, 45 seconds for you.
Yeah, I'll just conclude by saying that, of course, this is a very, very important issue. And there were other issues also that were discussed. And let me tell you, Jay, that the Malabar exercise is going to come to Australia for the first time. Which is a joint naval exercise, and there's going to be another exercise, Australian, I think the Tasmanian Sabre exercise, where the Indian Navy will be taking part, because Prime Minister Anthony Albanese was on INS Vikrant as well in Mumbai. So the strategic relationship is moving forward. The trade relationship is, as I mentioned before, at the moment probably at the best can be called average, but with the signing of ECTA, hopefully there will be momentum there, and it will get some boost. But overall, I think the India-Australia relationship is very, very crucial, not just for the security of the Indo-Pacific, as I mentioned before. It will be a relationship that will impact global political relations as well. So let's hope for the best. And but one thing is very clear, that the issue of Hindu temples being vandalized is something that the Indian government has taken note of. And for the Prime Minister to make that statement means that it has been discussed at the highest level. And let's hope that the authorities in Australia do something really concrete, so that the Indian-Australian community, which includes Hindus and Sikhs, it's not just about one religious community, whether it's Hindus, Sikhs, Christians, Muslims, all Indians. This is a matter that concerns all Indians. And let's hope for the best.
Thank you so much, Pallavi. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. And I can reassure our listeners, viewers, and readers that We will keep on raising the questions which are important to us. If you want to write to us, please tell us confidentially what subjects, what issues are important to you. We will raise them with the highest authorities, and we will not let it go, as we have not let this issue go. It has been raised on the highest of the highest offices possibly in Australia and India. Thank you for supporting us. Do join us when we come back with more detailed report. Thank you.